Hello and welcome to a review for absolute values when we're solving equations and inequalities. Remember, tomorrow we're having a test on this. All right, so the first one here looks like an equality, and remember when we're talking about absolute value, it's distance away from zero. So we always have two numbers that are going to be distance away from zero, or whatever number that we have on the number line, whatever number it is. If we ask you to go 3 steps, here's 1. And if we ask you to go 3 in the opposite direction, both of these are an equidistance away from the number. So we always have to set up 2 cases. So x plus 7 equals 20, and x plus 7 equals negative 20. Now we go ahead and solve these, subtract 7. So one answer is x is 13. And another answer would be if we subtract 7, make sure you guys are using your calculators. So negative 20 minus 7 is a negative 27. So the two solutions to this are 13 and negative 27. All right, another thing that we need to be careful of whenever we're solving absolute value is we want it to say absolute value equals a number. But we have this negative 5 that's in the way. So the first thing we need to do is move that 5 away from the absolute value. So now it says the absolute value of x plus 2. These are going to cancel out, and it equals 9. Now, we go from here. Do not go back to this original problem. We're going to set up our 2 cases after we move that 5. So we have x plus 2 equals 9. And then the second case would be x plus 2 equals a negative 9. Do not go back to that original problem. Subtract 2, subtract 2. So x equals 7 is one solution. And subtract 2, subtract 2. So x equals negative 11 is another solution. So 7 and negative 11. All right, this one says absolute value equals negative 2. Can we ever take the absolute value of something and get a negative 2? So when we take the absolute value of 8, remember that answer is 8. It is 8 units away from 0. And if we take a negative 10, the absolute value of a negative 10 is a positive 10 because it's 10 steps away. So whenever we take the absolute value, we always get a positive number. And because this is a negative number, we say there are no solutions for this problem. All right, absolute value. So we have a number over here that's outside that absolute value. So we need to get rid of that 3 by dividing both sides by 3. So we have the absolute value of x plus 8 equals 10. Now we do not go back to this problem for anything right now, so we can set up x plus 8 equals 10, and x plus 8 equals negative 10. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So one answer here is x is 2, and another answer here looks like we're going to have x is negative 18. So our two solutions are 2 and negative 18. All right, we still have this absolute value with an equal sign. Again, we still have a number and we need to get rid of that. So I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. So the absolute value of 2x minus 8, that turns into a 0. And 15 minus 15 is also 0. So this is the only time that we're only going to have one case, because 2x minus 8 equals 0. In our second case, if we would set this up, we have it equal to negative 0, and we know that 0 can't have a negative sign, so we don't even need to solve this. We're only going to have one solution here. So now let's solve this and find out what our solution is. Add 8, add 8. So 2x equals 8. Now we're going to divide by 2. and x is 4. So we only have one solution, and the answer is x equals 4. All right, going in now, we switch from the equal sign to the inequality sign. The rules are still the same. It needs to say absolute value, symbol, number. And it does, so we can go right to setting up our two cases. Now remember, with the inequalities, when we set up the second case, we need to flip this sign, and we need to make it equal to that negative number here. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this. Add 7, add 7. So x is greater than or equal to 22. And over here, we're going to add 7, add 7. So x is less than or equal to negative 8. Now, when we have these inequalities, we need to graph these. So if I graph this first one, any number bigger than, greater than 22. So bigger is going to go to the right. Now at 22, is this an open or a closed circle? And because it has this line underneath it, greater than or equal to, we are going to put in a solid dot here. Now graphing this second one over here, any number less than or equal to negative 8. So again, it has the equal to underneath it. So we're going to do a solid circle. And any number less than goes out. So if you guys had your notes in front of you as you were doing this, remember when it's less than or equal to, that is like an and problem, so that we end up shading between them. Like this problem is greater than or equal to, and the greater thans, these are or problems. And when we shade for these, we go out. Okay, for all intents, for what we're doing right now, this is going to be a general rule that you can follow. All right, let's solve and see what happens here. Again, they have numbers outside these absolute values, and we need to take care of these first before we do anything further. So we're going to subtract 3. 7, absolute value of x plus 7 is less than, and 24 minus 3 is 21. Okay, now we have to get rid of the 7 that's in front. So we're going to do that by dividing both sides by 7. And we're dividing by a positive number. So right now there's no flipping. 21 divided by 7 is 3. All right, we finally have it. Absolute value, symbol, number. So remember, we do not want to go back to the beginning for anything. So we're going to write x plus 7 less than 3, and our second case is going to be x plus 7, flip your sign, and make that negative 3. So subtract 7, and we have any number less than negative 4. So on a number line, that would be a open circle here at negative 4, because it just says less than, and any number less than goes this way. Okay, now we're going to subtract 7. So this says x is greater than negative 10. All right, negative 10 doesn't look like I made my number line long enough here, so I'm going to have to extend it a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to extend this, make it a little bit bigger, because on the number line we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 would be out here. Again, it is an open circle because there's no line underneath here. It just says greater than. And where do my numbers get bigger? To the right. So when those two lines are crossing like that, we know that we are going to be shading between. Which if you look way back at the beginning, and if we were to guess what was going to happen here, we can see that this symbol in here is a less than symbol. And when we have less than, you can see back here, less than is when we shade between, and that's exactly what happened here. We end up shading between the two numbers, negative 10 and a negative 4. All right, so we have one last problem that we're going to need to go over, and that is me just asking the question, is this number a solution? So we can go back to here, and how about I just ask, is 80, I had a problem up here, it must have disappeared somehow, some way. So I had a problem up here, and we're going to solve, and is 80 a solution? Okay, so we want to know, is 80 a solution to this problem? And so the problem that I have is 2, and we have x plus 13 minus 60 is less than or equal to 50. So is 80 a solution? And there's two ways you can do it. You can take that 80, plug it in, and do the math, or you can get yourself a graph, whichever way is easiest for you. So I'm going to first solve it, and I have to move this 60. So I have 2 absolute value x plus 13 less than or equal to 110. Okay, we still do not have our absolute value by itself, so I need to get rid of this 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So the absolute value of x plus 13 is less than or equal to 55. Okay, finally have it, absolute value, symbol number. So x plus 13 is less than or equal to 55. And my second case is x plus 13. Remember, flip your sign and make this negative. All right, subtract 13, subtract 13. So x is less than or equal to 42. And if I subtract 13, I have x is greater than or equal to negative 68. All right, so if I were to graph this, my numbers are negative 68, closed circle, bigger, and I'm at the number 42, closed circle, smaller. So it looks like we're talking about any number between negative 68 and 42 is going to work. So is 80 between negative 68 and a positive 40? And the answer is no, so this is not a solution. Now, some of you maybe didn't want to graph it. Some of you just wanted to put an 80 in here and then do the math. So what is 80 plus 13? We end up with the absolute value of 93 minus 60 is less than or equal to 50. So now, what is the absolute value of 93 is 93. So 2 times 93 is 186, and 186 minus 60 is that less than or equal to 50. So now if I subtract 60, I'm at 126. Is 126 smaller than 50? Is it less than? And the answer is no, it's not, so it is not a solution. So you can choose to either graph it and see if it fits in there, or you can plug it into the problem and just do your math. All right, good luck on your review assignment.